At the time of my grandma's passing 4 years ago, I didn't know how to grieve because I didn't feel like I knew her well enough. My grandma Pat was born November 24th, 1945, and followed by two sisters, Pam and Diane. She married my grandpa Mike on October 21st, 1967. Growing up, my grandparents modeled the love that I knew I wanted to have in my future. My grandpa was so gentle and cared for her really well. They had three kids: Michelle, my mom, Julianne, and Mark. Michelle married my dad Bob. I grew up with two siblings. We saw my grandparents frequently, probably more than 8 times a year. Despite all this time together, my grandma was never one to talk about herself. This video is a journey and exploration of learning more about my grandma beyond the context of wife and grandma.
I remember the day I got my boot stuck in the snowbank on the way home from school, and we couldn't get it out. So I came home in just my shoe, and then Pat got, it wasn't funny. Pat was reprimanded for not getting my boot out of the snowbank. So I think on a lot of the times I was a pain in her tail. This little sister that wouldn't go away.
My sisters and I have decided to put our stories down for all our children, whether they want to hear it or not. As much alike as we are, we each will have our own insights and remembrances. We each have our own volume. Painfully shy or not, I was not slowed down for one moment. This brings me to the biters. One older girl kept biting me, and I went home many times to tell Mom. Her advice was, bite her back. This seemed to work against all I had learned so far. The encounter has a twist. When I sunk all my baby teeth in her arm, I was so proud that I could hardly wait to tell Mom. She did say that this could not be a daily activity. Rats!
I guess that when our parents died, we fell back into our non-demonstrative selves. We didn't talk much about things or deal with each other very well over those things. We just went on in our stoic ways. So when Pat was in high school, she was going to the prom. And she went through all the fashion magazines and found this dress that she just loved. It was white, and it had pink roses that went down the front. And she really wanted this dress. And for some reason, my dad thought that he would take her shopping. We all had to go shopping to the Mayfair Shopping Center. And we all went shopping for Pat's dress, thinking that would never happen because it was very costly. And she ended up coming home with that dress, and she loved that dress to the point where I think she still has it, or Mike still has it in the closet at their house. I think it gave her a sense of somebody caring enough to spend that money on her. I just know she loved the dress, and she looked beautiful in it.
Well, Grandma had a number of activities she tried, such as she was doing quilting, and she tried that. She made a relatively nice quilt one time, and then she made matching pillows to go with the quilt, things like that. She was busy with a number of activities, but mostly she would just do the typical things a housewife and mother would do. For one thing, she didn't like sewing.
Yeah, I made the quilt and the pillows.
Pat was not a good seamstress. Everything Pat touched, any machine Pat touched, seemed to break before she got very far on her projects. But what she was good at was she was very artistic with flowers. And she was a licensed hairdresser, and so she was very artistic with hair. But other hobbies, I don't think she had too many. I was surprised when Pat went to school to become a beautician. Our father did have his hairdressing license, and I was surprised that she followed in that vein. Unfortunately for her, she was allergic to a lot of the chemicals and didn't continue with that. Then she went into flower arranging and was allergic to that too. And then she married and was home with her kids for a long time.
She was very supportive and encouraging, and I had a lot of medical issues, And that all was taken care of by her. She sat vigil by bedside every day that I was in hospitals because she knew how terrified I was. And just to comfort me, she stayed bedside at all times.
To watch Pat grow and mature as she did what was expected of all of us, which was to grow up and get married and have kids. I like to think that she was happy in her life doing that. It seemed to fit her well.
I probably had more trouble than a lot of able-bodied people transitioning into an adult person. And she was there for me at all times. I could call her day or night. And she was just very supportive, encouraging, and just, being there to comfort me and tell me to just be calm. You're creative. You'll think of your own ways. And she was very supportive. She always said I could do anything. It's just finding my way to do it.
I will say that Pat had a strong faith in God her entire life. She always believed the Lord would take care of her. I think she had a strong tie to her religion as well. Not just her faith, but to her religion as being a Catholic.
God was one of my first memories. It seemed that I always knew there was a God. Church, Latin, and the little girl. Church was fascinating. Where else can you sit on a kneeler and play on a pew and wear a rosary around your neck and people think you're adorable? Sometimes people would even give you 25 cents. Music always drew me to the church, and the rest of the time I spent trying to figure out Latin.
We both were the same religion, and we both went to church every week. It was a very important thing. I mean, we were married in the church. We went to church every Sunday.
She was a very strong woman, determined, and she's very positive thinking. And things, especially like when she got cancer, it was not life-blowing for her. It was just something she had to figure out how to add to her life and things like that. She was she just kind of went with things. Nothing really shook her. And having a disabled child that would be in and out of hospitals, she just took it as this is what the next stage is going to be.
Our marriage was a very happy marriage. I mean, we got along well. There's obviously, with any couple, there's times there's going to be disagreements in that. But overall, I guess you could say I just gave in to whatever she wanted. That's a typical marriage. I mean, she was never outlandish in the things she wanted. Like any marriage, I always felt whatever she spent was more than she should have. But that's typical too, I think.
I think family holidays were very important to Pat because she put a lot of work into them. At times they were stressful for her. I think overall she really enjoyed the time. And one thing that she always did is she got special gifts for everyone that came.
She was always thinking of things to do for the grandchildren, things to buy them. When we would go to the store, she would see one thing or another and think that it's just the thing she should get for the grandchildren.
I think Pat loved being a grandparent. She was so excited when you were born.
When Grandma was being slowed down, not able to do everything that she used to do, she still kept the responsibility for seeing that we had meals, but she couldn't necessarily do all of the cooking.
I think your grandpa misses her, but he was a caregiver for a very long time. And maybe he's glad not to have that responsibility anymore. But I still think he misses her. He talks about her, He talks about her with fondness, so that's good.
At the funeral, I held it together most of the funeral, but the one thing that got to me was when I saw my grandpa cry. I couldn't help but to cry. I looked ahead and he was in the row ahead of me, and I saw him cry. And that broke me interiorly. And I think that was the first time it really hit.
It was kind of very devastating to me. One of my reactions was that I thought, I seem to be able to take most everything as it comes along. So Grandma dying, I expected that I would just adjust to it and go on and that stuff. It bothered me a lot more than I expected it to when she died, because I generally just take things as they come. And this took a lot more adjusting than I thought it would.
I remember Pat as a very loving mother-in-law to me, a wonderful grandmother to our kids. She always did great things for our kids, loved them very much, and was present for all of the events that she could possibly be at. I have a lot of affection for Pat.
Oh, I'm going to get teary. She's my big sister. And I loved her and I miss her. I just miss her. I remember her well. Yeah. And you hit way too close to the anniversary of her passing. It just gets, I kind of remember. Yeah. So, and then didn't help for Aunt Diane to pass 2 years later. So, I often wonder why I got left behind. 2 of them left me behind. Uncle Jerry can leave me behind, that's okay. But my sisters didn't have to leave me behind.
One of the things I notice is there's things that Grandma would key in on, things she would like to do, stuff she would comment about, and as one thing or another changes, I'll see something that I know Grandma would find interesting, and I think, oh, I got to remember to tell her. And then I realize, well, there's nobody to tell anymore. That happened a lot, especially in the first year or two after she passed away, is I'll remember, oh, I got to remember to tell her, and then I realize, well, I guess I won't.
I think the thing I learned most about my grandma in this process is her strength. She was in very severe physical pain for 19 years, and I couldn't tell she was in that much pain until the last couple years of her life. She was a positive thinker, and in getting to know her more through this project, I have been shown her mental and spiritual strength, which inspires me to keep pushing through my own chronic pain. In learning more about her, I still feel like I haven't learned enough about her. Most of my family didn't remember specific things about her, beyond the titles of wife, sister, mom, and grandma. She put herself in a place of humility and listening as she shied away from the attention. I don't think she knew how to talk about herself, but I wish I would have had the courage to ask her questions anyways.
There's Daddy. There's Grandma with her hair on.
Happy birthday, Maria.
Nothing but class.
And you told me not to say anything stupid.